Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News. Joined now by Stacy Burks,
Morning.
Executive Director for the Red Cross for Southwest Missouri, or for Missouri and Arkansas. Hurricane Ian making landfall yesterday. Certainly a terrifying situation and a very dangerous situation for folks in Florida. And I understand you already have some people that are in Florida to assist down there.
We do. We already have Red Cross volunteers in our workforce from the 4 states area, from Missouri, Arkansas region, as well as the Kansas, Oklahoma region. On the ground in Florida, we have others who are on standby, who are waiting for orders to actually transport down, as well as our emergency response vehicles, which are driven by teams of 2 that will be driven down there to the Florida areas, and they'll be distributing food and hot meals to those in need.
How many people does it take to respond to a situation like this, or does it depend on the situation?
It really does depend on the situation. Of course, this looks as if it could be a multi-state response for the American Red Cross, so it literally could take a couple of thousand people to respond. And then what we do as the Red Cross is we have people who deploy. Our volunteers will deploy for about 14 days at a time, some longer. But most of the time it's 14 days. And then we will send in another crew to replace that crew. And we do that continually until the Red Cross is no longer needed.
And you mentioned there are folks from the 4-state area that are down there or on standby to go down there. Do you know roughly how many volunteers you have in the area just ready to go?
Oh, goodness. Probably somewhere between 700 and 1,000. I know that's a wide range, but it's literally changing hourly, and due to the storm's path and coming in, we do have what we call a ground stop, meaning people aren't going to be moving. We're not going to be bringing people in for fear of life-threatening issues with the storm. And so we'll stop the volunteers coming into the Florida, Georgia, Alabama areas and Carolinas until that storm gets out of that, and then we'll be ready to go with those on the ground and others coming back in.
And you mentioned you've already got some volunteers. Are there ways for people to volunteer now in preparation to go down to Florida, or when the storm turns around, comes back in to wherever they're needed, or are you already set with the folks that you have?
So I tell you what, let me answer that in a couple ways.
Yeah.
First of all, it will depend upon how long we're needed on the ground to respond to the storm as to whether or not someone who wants to volunteer, let's say today, and can come and get trained and then get deployed down there. So it will depend upon that time frame. But what I will say, for those who can volunteer, and maybe you can't spend 14 days gone from your home, Red Cross is in need of volunteers every single day. We respond to home fires, we respond to floods. Missouri and Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, we're not immune to tornadoes this time of year. And so we need folks in our own hometowns who can respond to their friends and neighbors when storms like these happen. And so even if you can't deploy to a large storm like this for 2 weeks at a time, we need volunteers.
And if people do want to volunteer, where do they need to go?
The easiest way is to go to redcross.org/volunteer today.
All right. And then in terms of following the storm, what can folks do here locally to help out? Is there anything they can donate or provide to the Red Cross in response to the storm?
One thing I want to caution people is that there will be supplies and there will be food items already pre-positioned to get into place for these folks. Obviously, once the storm passes, lots of retail areas in those states will reopen again. So we want to keep those economic engines going. Most of the Red Cross, as well as our partners that are in those areas serving, have the capacity to turn $1 into a multiplier to purchase products to give out to those in need. And so what I'm going to say is that primarily financial contributions to the American Red Cross, as well as any of our partners, are going to be the best way to help those in need. We want to caution against trying to donate clothing, canned goods, those types of things, unless you want them used in your local area, because those require volunteers to sort them. They require volunteers to then transport them, and it takes away from the availability of the mission and those volunteers that are needed there. whereas a financial contribution can go directly to the areas that it's needed and then be spent in that area. And so the turnaround for those clients is much better.
And then to donate financially, what do they need to do there?
Sure, it's really easy to donate financially to the American Red Cross. You can go to redcross.org and up at the top right-hand corner, click donate. You can dial 1-800-RED-CROSS, or you can text the word Red Cross to 90999, and that'll make a $10 donation. Excuse me, text the word disaster to 90999.
All right, perfect. Stacy, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Of course, we'll have all this information on our website, including those links that you need to if you want to help out at KOAMnewsnow.com. We'll be back after this.